So just a quick, this will be fairly short and hopefully informative. Basically, we're going to ask for some community updates from the Ottawa Public Library, our counselor, and also a CloveLink update from Barbara from the Canada Green Space Coalition. We'll go through the president's report. The stuff is all available online as well. So there's a web page that if you go to the Canada Beaverbrook Community Association webpage, there are the president's report, this presentation, and the treasury report for more details. Yes, Kevin.
Yes, Neil, I just wanted to just to state for the record that seeing how many people are online right now, we have established a quorum for the meeting.
All right, that's fabulous. So we can vote you the next president. There you go. We'll also have some specific input and updates on tree inventory and sustainability. And one of the things I certainly want to do now that we're, shall we say, at least financially clear of COVID, is to look much more strongly at re-engaging in-person events. Is certainly going to be a focus this year. And we'll have some more information about that. There's also a sustainability meeting that's coming up that will be advertised fairly shortly to basically do it all across Canada North as a Sustain Canada North. I actually had some great input from Julie Gorley, who ran Sustain Canada North a few years ago, quite successfully, and she will be joining us for that session, which will be on Saturday morning, May the 13th. So looking forward to kicking off and getting some in-community projects going. Anyway, without further ado, let's move on. So Abby, if you want to, I will just click here and you can unmute yourself and I will forward to your slides. So.
All right. Thank you so much. Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me. So my name is Abby Clark. I'm an adult services librarian from your local Beaverbrook branch. We're on 2500 Campo. Just wanted to share some quick updates about some services that we're offering this spring that I think many will be very excited about. So as always, we're offering free programs for all ages. For kids, we've got our regular bilingual story times, baby times, toddler programs that cater to those specific ages, crafting programs like Tinkering Tuesdays, where kids can just drop in and create till their heart's content. Game On programs where families can drop in and play board games together. For teens, we've got our retro movie afternoon screenings, complete with some snacks. Our video game drop-in programs where they can play together. And as always, we continue to just offer a fun and safe space where they can hang out and connect after school. And we've also got some new lighting in our teen section, which is really, really beautiful. So I invite you guys to check that out. For adults, we've got some really great art programs coming up. We've got our spring quilling, which is like a paper art. Nature journaling, we have a bad art afternoon. So we challenge the community to show up and create the best bad art they can. We continue to offer English conversation group for those who are looking to improve their English skills. We have book clubs. We're doing a book tasting event. If you want to try out a hard-boiled mystery or a juicy thriller or cheesy romance, and we have a digitization lab tour going on monthly. For those who do not know, we have a lab up in the Beaverbrook Library where you can digitize old slides, negatives, Super 8 reels, and VHS tapes all for free. We've got some special programs running, which are still also free. So we have our NaNoWriMo, or the National Novel Writing Month Write-In Challenge. That's on April 20th. Any adult looking to kickstart their writing projects can drop on in and take up the challenge to try and meet your word count goal. And we also have a Canadian National Film Day for both English and French screenings on April 19th, where you can pop into the library to enjoy Canadian film. Our English movie is going to be Buffy Sainte-Marie, Carry It On, and that's all about the musical icon Buffy Sainte-Marie. And our French movie is Le Journal d'Aurélie La Flemme, and that is a coming-of-age story based on a Quebec author's novel. On April 28th, We're also offering a job search workshop that's for all ages. Anyone looking to jump into the job pool, or maybe get back into it, get their dream job, help with their resume or interview skills. And that's presented by the local Community Employment Resource Center, or CERC. They're a really great resource just on Hazeldean in our community. I also want everyone to keep an eye out for the TD Summer Reading Club. That's going to be really exciting for the younger card holders maybe in your family. It's going to help them keep reading all through summer. We have really great activities and programs that are going to be really great for the whole family. Makes for a really fun day out. So keep an eye out, that'll be coming soon. And as always, we continue to be a welcoming, inclusive space for the community. If you want to pop in just to enjoy, a book in the sun in one of our comfy chairs, we'd be happy to see you. If anybody needs anything or has any questions or comments, I can always pop my email in the chat. Please don't hesitate to reach out. I see a hand. Is that for me? I see 2 hands.
Yes, it's Kevin McCarthy.
Hi there.
One of the directors. One of the things we're trying to do in the KBCA at the moment is encourage volunteering. And some of the programs you described, are you looking for volunteers? Because I think people in the community would be a good resource for that.
So adult or teen?
I'm thinking in the adult group, your English conversation group and whatnot.
Yep. Now that there is run by volunteers. However, it's one volunteer is the teacher. They've been selected already. And typically for adults, we don't tend to have them help out in the programs. What we have them do is help out in our bookstore. So there's an association called Friends of the Ottawa Public Library, or FOPLA. And they would work in Bookends, which is the little bookstore, used bookstore, really, really great, just outside the library, and the money comes back to us. So helps us get programming stuff and equipment and furniture. So I would recommend that if they actually just search up FOPLA on Google, I can always supply a link. They do have volunteering opportunities. I unfortunately do not have the power to provide those opportunities, but the FOPLA website would, and they would be able to apply through there. And then we have a separate link for teen volunteers if you need any information about that. What I can do is also supply my email, and I can give you more specific links, or we can continue talking about that. I can hook you up with the right people.
Petra.
Hi, I'm Petra. Abby, do you have drag queen story time for kids? And if yes, what age range?
We do not, unfortunately. It's just not something that we've been able to offer. Most of those programs, to my knowledge, are, I would guess, probably done with an external presenter. So we would have to find a queen somewhere in the community to come do the story time. It's not something that has been, it's not an opportunity, unfortunately, that just we've been able to explore yet. Most of our story times are just done by our kids staff, but I can certainly ask about it and get back to you with a better answer than that.
I think this answer is right, just right. I'm glad you don't. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions?
Okay, thank you very much, Abby. And Councillor Curry, you're up.
All righty, thank you. I have a long list. I mean, I know that I could have made it a lot longer, but I'll start with what I think you want to hear about first, and then I'll answer questions on anything citywide, locally. So of course, I hope you're on my newsletter. If you're on my newsletter, you'll get a lot of this with more detail. So if you're not, please sign up for canadanorth.ca. I know most of you are, but this newsletter on Friday, you'll see the new consultation date for Weeping Willow. So the people who are going to be potentially building a building there have a new design that they're going to bring to us. So we shall see. I mean, behind the scenes, your president there, Neil, Marianne, and a number of us have met and given feedback to staff. The concept of moving the building closer, further in, we've given them all that feedback. That's what we suggest would be better. We'll see what they present on. It's either this week or next week. It's in my newsletter, the exact date. And I think I actually don't know the exact date. Otherwise I would have written it down, because they're just finalizing that with Lisa Stern. But that is to watch for. So coming up very soon. As I talked to Neil about this morning, I put a motion forward to reduce the speed limit on March Road based on a lot of community feedback that is wanted between Tarrant and Carling to start to 60, given the number of pedestrian deaths, cyclists, serious accidents and deaths, vehicle deaths, accidents. That section from Tarrant to Carling is the worst. The rest of March is 80, probably works for 80, but that section is particularly bad. So, you know, the staff feedback has been, as they give on every request for a lowered speed limit, that, you know, we don't have police that will be policing it. I don't think that's a good enough reason for not doing it. But anyways, I'm bringing the motion forward to Transportation Committee. I've had a considerable feedback. I mean, when I took office there, November 2021, I think maybe a month after that, that man was killed crossing there from across from Metro, right across. But even before that, I'd been getting emails on that. And Jenna said as well, maybe Marianne, you did as well. But since that time, we've had the A&W, the Tim Hortons, like there's a lot more going on there. It's just busier. There's more traffic. So we'll see what happens at Transportation Committee. Likely it will pass. So there'll be signs in there. I'll certainly need some help letting people know that that speed limit has changed. 100 Stacy, highly disappointing news on that front that we could not get a planner despite our best efforts. Tim Mark worked very hard to get one, thinking right from the start he'd have no trouble getting a planner to defend that case. He said that to me all the way along. He thought it was a very strong case. As you know, that's the one that, you know, is beside a wood processing plant near a nuclear facility with no walking paths and no lighting. Access farther from a kilometer because people can't cut through a private laneway to get to the LRT or get to the bus stop. So, you know, there were a lot of things that were indicators that it would be a very strong case. However, Bill 23 and Bill 109 and other bills have made it such that, you know, the mandate instead is housing anywhere, anytime. It doesn't matter, wetlands, you know, green belt. So very, very frustrating. As I was saying to Neil the other day, my understanding is the case will still be there on June the 12th. It's just that the city will have no witnesses, no planner, no engineer. And so what we've been advised is if a city were to show up with no witnesses, that we would then be given the cost that Brazil would have to pay to fight that. And, you know, that's not something the city wants, but the court date is still there. And as I committed to Neil, I will get back to you on, you know, what the community can do, because we still have very good presentations from the community that have been submitted. So Andrew was looking into that and I didn't get a chance to even talk to Andrew about that today, but I will get back to you on that. The LRT Commission, you know, the Horgan report had 109 recommendations on the LRT. Tomorrow there will be a briefing for media and for anybody who wants to watch, where staff and the engineers and Alstom and RTM will go through each recommendation that applies to the city. There's a few that don't apply there for the province or for the federal government. There's a few specifically for RTM, the maintenance group, but the rest of them are for the city. So the city's going to go through each recommendation and talk about what they're doing to address that recommendation. They've agreed with all of the recommendations. Then on April 26th at the LRT subcommittee, staff will do a further and even deeper dive into each one of the recommendations. So if that's something that's interesting you, what has happened with the LRT, there's two opportunities to get answers and hear from the experts as to what each recommendation will mean. Canada Day, it will take place again in Walter Baker Park, obviously on Canada Day. There will also be another multicultural event that is in the process of being planned with a number of groups. Canada Lakes was interested in doing it, and then there's another group that has sort of taken over the lead on that, along with, you know, the councillor's office will help, and the Canada Central BIA is interested. Most likely it will also be in Walter Baker Park. It will be an opportunity for celebration of different cultures, dancing, music. Should be very fun. We had booked the park for July 28th already preemptively, so I'm not sure if they're going to take that date, but they are taking on the planning of that. So if anyone's interested in participating in the planning of a big multicultural event, that would be great. The Canada Central BIA has had a request from the businesses. Think about those businesses that are across from Costco, the businesses that are now across from All Saints High School, the businesses in Village Green there beside the Russian Orthodox Church, and the businesses at the end of Canada Avenue there with the new Shell station, those businesses in there. They've asked if they could be a part of the Canada Central BIA and be promoted along with the businesses in Canada Centrum. So to add more areas into the BIA, they have to apply to the City of Ottawa to expand the BIA boundaries. So That process is ongoing. It doesn't mean a lot for residents, but just so you know that that is a process that's going on. We've had a lot of questions in the councillor's office, people wondering what that really means, but it's really more businesses are wanting to be a part of the Canada Central BIA, so they can also benefit from that promotion of their businesses. There was talk about expanding all the way to Hazeldean Road, but we think that that's a little bit too much at the moment. So it was kept just as far as Tanger. Clean up the capital starting, obviously, there's dates. You guys are going to talk about that. There are other community associations are having cleanup dates as well. I'm hoping to go to a lot of those. You'll start to see all the traffic calming measures going up, all the little bollards and, stakes in the middle of the road and all the things that sometimes drive you crazy, but they will be starting up. We'll add a few more streets. People have asked to have more traffic calming on a lot of streets actually that are more in Morgan's Grant have asked for more. We were given the option to add a couple more crossing guards. I had a lot of requests for Penfield and Tarrant, because people who walk to Stephen Leacock Wedge and Roland, well, not really Roland Mitchell but Earl of March have to cross at that light, and it's very busy on Tarrant. So we have asked for a crossing guard there. We'll see if we get it, but I think we were indicated that would be likely. OC Transport will be having a route review again in my newsletter with the exact date consultation where they'll be going through all of the routes for specifically for Canada North, and asking us what we want, what can we do, what is not working, which is, pretty much everything. People mostly complain about all of our bus routes in Canada North. So that it will be your opportunity. And again, in my newsletter, I'll have the exact day of that consultation and I'll put it in the newspaper as well. So stay tuned, but that is coming soon. May, June at the latest, but I think it'll be May most likely. Sandhill Park, there was a request by a number of members of the community to bring back that fitness trek thing we used to have back in the day, where we used to have that participation park. So there are new versions of these things where there's just 5 or 6 fitness stations. So there's a couple of designs that will be sent out as well to the community to review and see what you like. There's one design that would have them all separated, and then there's one design that would have them in one location, just to keep it in one section. If you look at the one at Walter Baker Park, it might be somewhat similar to that. The most recent one that it's mostly similar to is on Langstaff Drive in Carp. So that will be something will be out for consultation. And then I know this is in Morgan's Grant, but the dog park consultation will be taking place probably in May as well. And it was slated to be in one section of the hydro corridor. And then it was determined by stormwater that there's a section of that hydro corridor that's actually a dry pond. It's a wet pond at some points, and then it's a dry pond later on and shouldn't be disturbed. So now they're looking at either making it smaller to not disturb this dry pond, or putting it into another location, but still within the hydro corridor. So if you're a person that wants to take your dog to a dog park, there will be one closer than Bruce Pitt. Those are... Thinking Lansdowne consultation. We approved a motion the other day at council that there would be a much more significant consultation on Lansdowne. As you can imagine, the community that lives there is quite impacted by the changes to Lansdowne, so they really want to have as much input as possible. It is obviously a citywide place, and the north side stands need to be repaired. The arena has so many issues, it's not even funny. But the community's asking questions like, do we really need to have an arena there? The OSEG group, Ottawa Sports and Entertainment Group, is really advocating that we have residential there, so there'll be more people to go to the businesses and restaurants. And that they're proposing 3 very tall towers, which the community is saying would be quite a lot of shade on the existing houses. But OSEG is looking for a revenue stream to be able to pay for things like getting new north side stands and a new arena. The problem is where they want to put the arena, it takes away a lot of green space, and the design right now doesn't have anybody even being able to access their green roof, which people are saying at a minimum, we'd like to be able to access that green roof. So if you have something to say about Lansdowne, the consultation is ongoing. Everything consultation is Engage Ottawa, right? So I'm sure many of you have gone on there. Engage Ottawa. You can look at all the different things that the city is having consultation on. The community association insurance program. There was a survey, and as many people on this call will tell you, it seemed to be quite leading in that the city wants to reduce the number of groups that they would offer insurance to, not add more, which we kind of were indicated early on that they were looking to bring everybody into the umbrella. And it seems now as if they're actually not wanting to bring people into the umbrella because of the liability costs when accidents do occur. So that is an ongoing conversation that I have with different community associations, you know, at our president's meeting or at individual community associations. We can talk about that more if you like. And then I think I'll stop now. I just want to say one thing, you know, there's lots of potholes out there. You see them all. If they're on private property, so, you know, mall parking lots, they're not usually something the city does anything about. It could be one of the private owners, you know, Penn Equity, or even the responsibility of Canadian Tire or Staples. But when they're in the roadway, 311 will come, and right now they'll do a quick patch, and then they'll come back later and do a better patch. But 311, if you don't get a response or nothing seems to be done, then definitely contact us, and then we follow up with 311. So those are some of the things, but I'm sure there are ones that people are hoping I would cover. I'm happy to, if you have questions.
Yeah, if you want to post, oh, there we go. Petra, let me just.
Yeah, hi, I'm Cassie. Can you touch on 15-minute neighborhoods in Canada North and possible timelines for implementation?
So thanks, Petra, for that question. Yeah, I get a lot of email on that because people, it's in our official plan that's something we want to try to do. But as we've talked at many meetings, I'm sure Neil and Barbara, Marianne will tell you, it's very hard to do after the fact, where you try to bring in things that people can walk to when there's already existing neighborhoods and roads and everything else there. So the only thing I see where that is applying in Canada for the most part is where we have residential buildings with commercial being slated for the lower floors, so that the people who live in that building could come down and access an accountant or a lawyer or a physiotherapist or a dentist or something like that, or a coffee shop, that people wouldn't use their cars as much. I mean, that's the way I see it happening in Canada, because, and if you look at the Nokia development, the concept is that Nokia would have its office tower on one end where its employees would be, then there'd be residential on the other end, and there would be more shops and little parkettes and things like that where people could walk and be able to access things more easily than jumping in their car and going further out. But that is, when people write to me about that, I know people feel really strongly that this is silliness, but that's the only real evidence I see of us coming up with 15-minute neighborhoods right now, because so much of our infrastructure is already set. New neighborhoods, they try to make sure as many amenities are within a 15-minute walking distance. Challenging to do.
Thank you.
Okay. Yes, actually, there was something that Kbca put together based on the experience of Beaverbrook, which was a full-blown 15-minute community up until 1995, and Centrum opened. I think the general comment is it's very, very hard to do that in 2023. And certainly one of the things we've seen from the developers is they don't believe that there is sufficient traffic or foot traffic or business for ground floor retail, and not enough density that they would actually survive. And their comment is they would rather put the money into additional apartments. Certainly, you've got, particularly with the big box stores, people do tend to vote with their wallet. So if you can get it cheap at a big box store versus paying a few more pennies at a local, particularly not a chain store, but someone who's a local homegrown company, they just don't get enough business. And I think that's part of the issue. Beaverbrook was successful predominantly because at the time, you had to go a long way to get any other kind of retail. So people did shop here. And even when some of it did start opening up, the thing that really was the nail in the coffin is when what was a Loeb's that was about 1/6 of the size, like 20, 30% of the size. Maybe if you were downhill in a tailwind compared to the one at Centrum, that was the nail in that put that to shame. Anyway, Katie.
Thank you. So just quickly, I know you've already said that there's a nail in the coffin, and this is kind of a non-issue anymore. But I'm someone who's looking forward and looking into getting involved in the community, and I find this issue so fascinating. So if there is anything we can do to get more businesses around here, I'd love to hear about it. Maybe there's not. Maybe I'm just like a crazy optimist. But anyway, I would love to see it, and I know that Beaverbrook used to be one, and I just think, anyway, it would be awesome if we could work a little bit on that, but I know that it's hard with the big box stores. Thanks.
Yeah, Katie, honestly, to Neil's point, the developers who build apartment buildings, they push back against the commercial below because they think it's very hard for them to attract the right type of commercial tenant. And so when you look at our Kbca town center area, all across from Best Buy and, the old Future Shop, what their argument back is, well, look, a lot of those businesses are still empty, like Penn Equity's challenge to get good people in there. Like Penn Equity, though, is trying very hard. I mean, they've gotten some new people and new businesses coming in there. So they will say there's enough around here that we don't need to, but our city staff are saying, no, we want to be able to make sure there's enough for people to walk to. The challenge with in particular Beaverbrook Mall is that Loeb was such a big tenant. It usually is taken on by a big high-tech company. And then the rest of that little mall is partially Chio. Are you looking for particular shops? My comment to you would be the city can't force anybody to come in there, right? But making available at least spaces for business. Is there anything in particular you're looking for?
To unmute myself. No, I just think that it would be, I'm an urban kind of transplant. And so it's not that I'm looking for a particular business. I just miss walking around and going places. And so I think it's too bad. And I know, like, for example, the Morning Owl, that's, why all those apartment buildings, I don't know if it would be considered Kbca Lakes, maybe, like, does get a lot of people in there. And it's one of those ground level coffee shops. So I don't know, just like coffee shops or small stores. Like I have no example. And I'm not backing this up by any economic analysis. I'm just interested and eager. And so like, if there was any appetite to ever like look into this more or talk to like urban planners or something, I would just be really interested in participating because it's something that I feel really passionately about. I hate driving places. And so yeah.
I know. Well, that's the thing about what Nokia is trying to do there is they're saying the people they would want to attract want to have like a little nightlife where they could live, come back downstairs and have all shops and, fun places to go and be able to walk out with little parks and, like lighted areas with cobblestone. Like that's the kind of, vibe they're trying to create over there to attract talent to the tech park. I will tell you that 150 Kbca Avenue, 180 Kbca Avenue that do face Best Buy, in between those buildings will be, they say, a little coffee shop and a couple of other little stores that then you'll be able to also walk right up into Bill Tarrant Park because now there will be an access way through there. So they are trying, they too, right? They want to attract people to live there, right? So they want to try to create this fun vibe too. I believe that's the same thing Main and Main are trying to do across from Nokia, the same kind of thing, but they'll have two office buildings and then the rest will be residential with commercial below and little parks. But that's a 15 to 20 year build, so you think that's a way out too. But anyway, I hear you.
Okay, so Katie, feel free to ping us at the Kbca at info@kbca.ca. We've got some information you might be interested in on the 15-minute communities, and we can certainly discuss that. All right, so next up, Barbara.
Thanks, Neil. And thank you, Kbca Beaverbrook, for inviting me in tonight and to inviting the Kbca Green Space Protection Coalition to share a small update with you. I don't think I'll be very long. We work and try and stay in one lane. We don't have as much of an area to cover as our good counselor does, but I'm happy to try and give you a little bit of an update. And before I do that, though, it's important for me, I think, to mention as chair of the Canada Green Space Protection Coalition that we have two of our board members with us tonight. Neil, your president, Neil Thompson, as well as Kevin McCarthy, one of the directors of the KBCA, are two of our most active board members. Kevin, in fact, is also a director of the KGPC, and they do a wonderful job of linking us into Beaverbrook. I also have to do a shout out to Rob McCauley, who always is in the background, not far away, with his expertise and his passion for our tree canopy and green space in general. And of course, Mary Ann Wilkinson, our former counselor, who is wise and knowledgeable and keeps reminding us of where we've walked, where we've been, and where we're still trying to go. And I never miss a shout out to our good counselor. Kathy has been a stalwart supporter of us right in the trenches since she took office a year and a bit ago. It seems not that long ago, and then it kind of seems like forever some days, Kathy. So, and I'm sure it does to you too, with all those committees you're on right now. Such an incredibly hard worker, but oh so transparent, which is really, from a community perspective, why I think you're probably here tonight, gathered to talk about Beaverbrook. That is the essence of how communities grow, how they thrive. The ability for people to understand what's going on in their community, find a role to volunteer, which is the lifeblood of how our communities run. So when you have counselors and representatives of the like of Mary Ann Wilkinson for years, Kathy Curry, this is what makes it easy to be a volunteer. Not perhaps as easy as we'd like it to be, but certainly we're always working on it. And I appreciate Kathy's comments at the beginning too. We look for all of our representatives, and I certainly would take those two ladies and hold them up as the best of the best. And so we always are looking to get representation at all levels of government. And so I'll quickly just move along and say that probably is critically important to how the Green Space Protection Coalition will have success for our communities, both Beaverbrook, Canada Lakes, and to a certain degree, Briarbrook and Morgan's Grant and the others, because the linkages are very, very strong. And this harkens back to what Kathy was just talking about. She mentioned the Nokia development. She mentioned the Main on Main development, these high density developments that are being approved as we look forward to the expansion of the Canada North Tech Park and the real economic engine that's going to support Ottawa in the next few decades and going forward. And certainly is the hallmark of our little neck of the woods here. So what we want to do from a Green Space Protection Coalition, while we struggle with this big nut right now, which is ClubLink and Minto Richcraft and their proposal for the green space and golf course lands, it is those linkages, it is the parks and the trails that are so essential. And as we struggle with these developments, and Kathy talked a little about this whole issue of 15-minute neighborhoods and that those essential services that people should and want to be able to walk to. How do you walk if you don't have the connection pieces? So it all spins on what the good counselor had to say about speeds on March Road. How do you cross March Road? to get from one side to the other, if everybody is whizzing by you at 100 kilometers an hour. It's really it takes a large picture. So having said that, where are we on green space? And things have been a little bit quiet, admittedly, for the past 9 months. No, I think we're up to almost 9 months now. Remind you, in September, we were in front of Justice Labrosse of the Superior Court on the 40% agreement. He has an obligation. He must issue a decision on that by mid-September of this year. The 6-month mark has passed. We haven't heard from him. He did signal at the end of that 3-day hearing that number one, he saw this. He continues to see this as a very important issue. He recognized how many people were going to be affected by the decision, how important it was to our community. And he understood that. He also acknowledged that he had a very big slate and a very large inbox with several other decisions that were for which he had obligation and had to get to, and warned us that the decision would not be coming out quickly. Also understand that he's now moving up, and he's actually, if not the most senior judge here in Ottawa on the Superior Court, he's like the number 2. So that means he gets tapped for a lot of other ancillary issues, as the lawyers describe it to me. So that doesn't mean anything is terribly wrong by not getting a decision, but know that we will hear something by September. He has a finite window on which to opine on this. The second piece of it is the alternate action that the KGPC and our community have taken up against Club Lake Minnow and Richcraft, which is the restrictive covenant action. So that is very much, it's like our plan B, if you will. We really hope the 40% agreement will carry the day, but we do believe strongly that, and we know that there were restrictive covenants signed by Club Link when they bought the property that prevent the regrading of the property. And while they don't last forever, they have a finite window of activity, which I believe ends in 2036. We always are looking for ways in which to prevent development now, shovels in the ground now. And we continually remind you that at the core of this issue, beyond the green space, beyond our accessibility for physical, mental, health reasons, all those good reasons why we choose Canada North and we choose to live with green space, we have to remember that central to this issue is this land is a stormwater management facility for Beaverbrook, for Canada Lakes, and as we learned last year with the awful August storms, the land beyond the now KNL, certainly 9, and questionably the yet to be developed 7 and 8. So central to all of this is a changing environmental situation. And that changes, as I would think you'd agree, literally on a yearly basis, if not a monthly or semi-annual basis. The storms we saw last year and the damage that we've seen, just even the last 2 weeks, the late ice storm followed by 30-degree weather. It is just so unpredictable, creating so much risk. And that is the city's to manage. And the city is responsible and has the ability to say yay or nay to accepting a stormwater proposal. And that will continue to be, I believe, the reason that the city is opposed to this development. It is what it has hung its hat on from the beginning. And I believe it has the most meat on the bones. And I think that that is going to continue. So why does the restrictive covenant action become and remain important? It remains important so that while we have the Ford government ensconced in Queen's Park, creating the policy that it's creating, much of which our communities dislikes, much of which our municipalities dislike. And certainly the rural areas are really struggling with what they're doing in regards to farmland and the development of farmland. The problem really here is policy takes time to change, and elections happen every 4 years. And as the climate change occurs at an ever more rapid rate, increasing rate, we're going to see this kind of change. And so we believe there will be more public outcry, that developments like Club Links that are clearly opposed by the community for very, very good reasons, some scientific reasons, will get more opposition, and better policy is going to have to come forward. So for those who say, well, Barbara, why are we raising money to fight a restrictive covenant that's going to expire in 2036? That is 13 years from now. And there will be, I believe, and I believe some good experts think there will be some very good policy written, both municipally, provincially, and even federally, because there is a thought that the feds are going to have to step in and ensure that this growth that we are hoping for and driving is respectful to the environment, and we're not creating artificial damage based on politics, if you will. So that's kind of where we are. On the restrictive covenants, we have not hurried forward into that. We try to be prudent in how we spend our money. We look to the community to support our efforts. And so we're still hopeful. Number one, the Justice Labrosse decision on the 40% agreement, when that comes down, that's going to direct us as to what we do next. And we will be out to the community about that. The OLT, the Ontario Land Tribunal, last year, I mean, that's behind us now. They made the decisions that they made. And where it is that, as was said by the councillor last year, and we said to our membership as well, there is a very defined number of actions that Club Link has to meet. And some of them are very complex, and they do include the stormwater management problem, among others. So that is still in the works, and it is going on in the back, and we're in constant contact with the councillor, and always looking for opportunities. When we have something to talk about, we'll be back out to the community, and we actually are hoping for a virtual town hall, at the very least, if not another in-person meeting like we had at Earl of March in November 2019 when this all started. So bringing everybody out again, getting everybody engaged, and letting Club Link, Minnow, and Richcraft remind them that we're still here, we're still in the fight. But again, just because you don't hear the sabers rattling doesn't mean we're not doing our push-ups in the background. We're working hard at it. And that just leads me to, as it always does, fundraising. We can't be in this fight with the community and with the city if we don't have the funds to do it. And there are things that we can do, for example, the restrictive covenant action, that it's very hard for the city to do. So there are roles that only the community can take on. And we always need your fundraising support for that. And this Saturday is Earth Day. So if you're out and about and appreciating spring and all that it is, and the trails that as they harden up a little bit, and we can soon, we hope, walk on them, we appreciate your donation. And I'll also take an opportunity, thanks Neil for the slide, to remind everybody that we're once again repeating our Chip In for Green Space fundraiser. Very successful first year last year at the Marshes. It was in June. This year we've moved it up. It's Friday, May 12th. We have only 10, I believe 10 foursomes, 10 or 11 foursomes left, 40 some slots. So if you are a golfer or know a few, we'd love to have you come out. It was a fantastic spread, a beautiful meal. We had live auction events, a ton of fun. We raised almost $50,000 last year, and we desperately need to do that again this year because Club Link doesn't quit. So we have to be there and stay there with them. So with Neil's permission, I'm going to drop in the chat room the direct link to Chip In for Green Space. It's on our website, our Kbca Green Space. And again, thank you. And I'm happy to take a question or two if there's anything that is top of mind for someone.
Actually, I will be putting out in our newsletter. I'm going to be putting that out tomorrow night because I ran out of time to get more newsletters out, but I will be putting out links on the Kbca Beaverbrook newsletter. So if you're not signed up, please do so. You can send us at info@kbcabeaverbrook.ca.
Great. Neil, I just sent you the link for Chip In if you can repost. I can't seem to post to the whole group. So there you go. But thank you for that support. And we do have some dinner only tickets, a few dinner only. If you're not a golfer and you just want to come out for a lot of fun, it was a great event last year. So I even got a video kicking around. I had to talk to a tortoise that walked into the middle of our putting contest. So we may run that again this year. That got a lot of hits last year. So it was a snapping turtle. I didn't want to get too close to him. But thanks again, and thank you always for your support. And please reach out if you have suggestions for us. We're happy to hear them.
Thank you, Barbara. So on to details on the Kbca. I'm going to skip over a few things here in the expediency of time because Kathy or other people have already covered it off. Generally speaking, and there's a much more detailed report. It's on the website. So if you go to the kbcabeaverbrook.ca website, there is all the materials that are being presented tonight. So if you want to get a lot more detail, there's so much that goes on. I'm sitting there, last couple of days going, what am I going to talk about? Well, 20 pages later. So there's a lot of stuff that goes on in Beaverbrook. So COVID-19, this time last year, we were just coming out of the various restrictions, and we had restrictions in terms of the use of the community center, which meant the income coming in had been down. That is pretty much over. Certainly, we're seeing a real strong bounce back in terms of people renting the community center and increased utilization. And so that's always has been something that I'm not sure how things are going to come back, but certainly the demand for in-community at a pretty low cost, because we are much lower cost than anything around in terms of the schools or churches, or unless there's a straight donation, or the city. So that's one of the focuses. Renovations are finally started, and I'll have some more about that later. Fire safety plans have come up recently. It turns out that there was supposed to be a fire safety plan on file with the city. It was not there. And so we're in the process working with the city and the building owner to get a fire safety plan done for the community center. That is well underway. One of the things that we had to, since COVID hit, there was a lot of in-person projects that we had and in-person events, things like the May Day, multicultural events, things that were at the on Sandville Green, et cetera, that all got shelved. We held a virtual cleanup last several years. We're doing a semi of that, but we'll also do an in-person one in May. One of the things we caution anybody doing cleanup is that if it's soggy in Beaverbrook, you can do a lot of damage to outside of the paths and the creek beds, et cetera, if you do it too early. So we generally speaking, we recommend it after the May 6th weekend as opposed to doing it now. Other things we did in the past year is we did the all candidates debate, which we usually conspire with the usual other community associations in Canada North and Canada South. So we did one for the Ontario election and also for the city of Ottawa. So that's something we do quite a bit. So one of the things we will be doing a lot of focus, we'll get to that in terms of planning. 1131 Terran is now well under the construction. And it will go to completion because they had committed before the recent jump in interest rates. One of the things that we are hearing and I actually heard it directly from the foreman of the 1131 is a lot of the big projects may come to a screeching halt if they have not gotten past a certain threshold. So for example, some of the places where they're now digging foundations or they're digging to lay a foundation may mysteriously all stop because the interest rates are very high and the demand that they're seeing in terms of actual units is not there right now. So one of the consequences is you can approve lots of units, but if there's no actual people wanting to move into them and the finances are particularly bad, then the developers aren't going to build. So I think that's one thing that I don't see anybody talking about at the provincial level. It's just approve, approve, approve. 100 Stacy, Kathy Curry's already commented to that one. Very interested. It's funny how Weeping Willow is coming up now. I'll be interested to see what they've got. Certainly comments from my compatriots up in Firebooks Morgan's Grant on the Nokia and Main is we're talking about adding 5,000 apartment units. And they're saying, well, they're going to have transit, so we don't need as many parking spots, except that there's actually no financial commitment to that transit. So what are you going to do if you've got, only enough parking spots for half your population and they need to have a car because the transit's not there yet? So this is something that I find the city tends to be very poor on is how do you transition from zero transit to, fully service transit in a predictable manner so that it plugs in with that. There is certainly a number of things going on. Development applications are popping up on a regular basis, and we'll see where they go. So there is the new official plan and transportation master plan. We work, the Kbca is a member of the Federation of Community Associations or Citizens Associations, as it is officially known. So we participate in the planning committee, subcommittee of that, and also transportation. So we've had comments put into the official plan and the transportation master plan. A comment I would make is that the transportation master plan doesn't seem to think that it's worth spending any priority time outside the Greenbelt right now. They seem to be entirely focused on leveraging the LRT, regardless of whether it's here or not, and ignoring the fact that we've got an increase of somewhere in around the neighborhood of 21,000 approved new homes and units ready to be constructed in a community of only 14,000 units, and yet it doesn't seem to be getting any traction. So not sure where the city is with that transportation master plan. It doesn't seem to be in sync with where the actual growth is happening. Quick note on stormwater management in follow-up to the flood over at the Beaver Pond. Certainly that is concerning. It does suggest that given that most stormwater management ponds, including a lot here in Canada North and Canada South, they're all predicated on never having to be touched. In other words, there will always be more than enough capacity, regardless of how big the storm is, based on measurements of what is a 100-year flood level. I don't think that's going to be true any longer. And if that's the case, then stormwater management ponds need to now be actually monitored, meaning you need flow, temperature, and height, such that if there is events that are happening and occurring, it can't wait until the community is flooded before the city is prepared to do something about that. So I put a somewhat tongue-in-cheek proposal to Kathy and the city to say maybe it's time we'll leverage 5G and start actually putting flow control sensors in places like the Beaver Pond to recognize what's going on there. We still have some issues in the community around heritage lighting. Most of you know that we have the corner street signs and, of course, the lawn globes. Still struggling to get the city to step up to actually maintaining those or find replacements. For example, the globes themselves, the manufacturer that was producing some spare ones, I think they stopped manufacturing them about 15 years ago. And so if somebody breaks one of those globes, they just are not anymore. Now, given that 3D printing is getting more and more possible, then it's possible we can do something. But I'm hoping to get that secured, because we also have our heritage district, shall we say, determination plan that's been on the books now for, I think it's going into its third term in the city of Ottawa. It's sitting still on the heritage subcommittee's plate, but we still haven't got any traction in terms of actually running the study to see if Beaverbrook is worthy of that. And if that's true, then those lawn lights and corner street signs are going to become part of that heritage. And I don't think we want to lose that. So that's, I think, the majority of what we have to speak to. I mean, this reflects the kind of things we get involved in, certainly planning, because a lot of things are coming into our community. We've always been heavily involved in that. I certainly have been for way too long. And so, it is a concern that planning needs to be happening such that it's not just about building homes, it's about building communities. And that's something that all of us have a vested interest in following through on. So I'd like to say that it's been very good in terms of the cross community association links here in Canada North, helped and abetted by Kathy Curry. We meet with her on a monthly basis, either collectively or individually. And we've got some new projects that are coming up, one of which Rob McCauley is going to talk about in terms of staying Canada North. So I'll leave it with that. Any other questions in terms of things going on in Beaverbrook? All right, so moving on from that. So certainly from the top priorities in 2023 plus, I would say the first thing is we've had a lot of people move into the community in the last 4 years, is to get people out and meet their neighbor. So certainly one of the things we're going to be putting together is how do you run a street party kit, or how do you do a meet and greet in the afternoon or a brunch or something else on the street to get people out to meet their neighbors, which has always been very effective at having very informal ways to meet people that you should have said hello to 3 years ago, but you didn't somehow get around to it. That has also been the basis for many years, and Marianne will be very familiar with, in terms of how do you find street captain volunteers and other people to start getting engaged in the neighborhood. Or it's a great place to have a chat with people like the directors at the Kbca as to how they can get involved. The Sustain Beaverbrook I'll leave for later. We're also planning in terms of that is to start we've been starting putting out a general newsletter with a much easier to use format that seems to be fairly popular. We've got over 500 people who subscribe to the Beaverbrook newsletter, and we're going to start doing a volunteer specific one. So we're going to be getting information out on that. I've been talking with Julie Gorley, who ran the last Sustain Canada North work, and she has put together a presentation that she will be bringing to the May 13th date on a Saturday morning to discuss those projects. We're looking to refresh our Kbca directors. Most of the directors have been here for quite a few years. I realized when I looked back in my slide deck, this is the 10th year for me as president. So I would like to look forward to stepping aside and letting someone else take that. And certainly my focus will be finding additional volunteers and directors in the next 12 months. So a little piece of, shall we say, housekeeping here is that was the president's report. The more detailed text version is on the website. If we could have a motion to accept the president's report. Marianne? Second, Eugene Florescu. Okay, very good. All those not in favor, please raise your hand, either virtually or click on the raise hand button. Otherwise, we'll say that it's been accepted. All right, very good. So next is the treasurer's report. This will be fairly short and sweet. Income has rebounded quite nicely. So we're doing fine financially. That's one of the benefits of running a community center for the city, is that we actually have a revenue stream so that we can do events and do things like renovations and in community projects. We reviewed our rental rates this year, and we'll do so in future years to make sure that we keep track with inflation, but also make sure that we're keeping our rates affordable for the community. We do sponsor a number of groups for free use, such as the Scouts and the Guides, and we're certainly happy to look at other groups that may have financial difficulties or looking for a place to meet. We also had a look at our contract staff. It was brought to my attention, we really hadn't reviewed their rates since about 2016, so that was fixed. And again, we'll be reviewing that annually as we're seeing such a substantial rise in inflation. Renovations have finally started, and we'll be doing that annually for the next 5 years. Certainly the biggest problem we had up until the end of 22 is finding a contractor who had enough time and energy and willingness to work with the community association to actually do what is relatively low cost kinds of renovations for the community center that has a lot of it is circa 1965. So long overdue in terms of doing that. We're leveraging the city capital grant program, which provides up to 50% funding, so we can make the dollars go further. So that has, now we've got through that, shall we say, first initial learning curve with the city to get that moving. So we're confident that we will be able to get renovations done in bits and pieces over the next 3 to 4 years to have a completely renovated and much better looking and much more utilitarian and useful community center. And given that funding is in good shape, we're looking to get input as to what community funding kind of exercises. A number of years ago, you may or may not, but the big cedar signs, one on Campo and the one up on Stacy Drive, that was funded out of the community association. And work was done by a whole bunch of scouters and scouts and cubs to both build those things, and lifting them was quite the exercise. It took 8 of us to move one of those signs. They were very heavy. And we're now getting Scout and other groups who are actually doing refinishing them. So certainly we're looking to entertain additional funded projects in community. One of the things I want to draw attention to is we typically run at about $20,000 surplus cash a year, which we can turn to those projects. Right now we're sitting on actually the number there is little. We're sitting on about $93,000 in cash, and we don't need that much because we have a continuous revenue stream to actually, have stuff for a rainy day kind of thing. So that is what's allowing us to go ahead with renovations and looking at other funding projects. And of course, with using the City of Ottawa's major capital grants, that will also extend our money. We're anticipating that all the renovations all told will probably be on the neighborhood of about $150,000 to $200,000 by the time it's all done. It's amazing what a bucket of paint will cost in 2023. So that's what our cash on hand is. Again, the actuals and budgets. The budget this year, we're going to have about $79,000 of income coming in, including the grant, and our costs will be about $100,000, including $50,000 in renovations, which is a loss of $23,000. But as I said, that's that's eating into our $95,000. So that's not something that's putting us in any kind of jeopardy. Some additional details on profit and loss statement to give you the bits and pieces of where the money went exactly if you're interested. Again, the treasurer's report is on the website in much more gory detail. And again, a motion, if I can have somebody to motion to accept the treasurer's report. Yeah, or if there's any questions. Can I get a motion, please? Eugene, can I get a seconder, please? Katie, very good, thank you. All those, any dissenting votes? If not, the motion carries. Very good. So as I said, the renovation has started. What has been completed so far is we have a new exterior door, which was a wheelchair accessible door that has been set up with a threshold that once a new ramp is put in and with parking lot work that is going to be funded by the building owner, It will be fully wheelchair accessible with the automatic push buttons on the inside and outside. That will also get some revised parking out there. We also last year bought one of the big steel hooped bike racks the city was selling for $200. Sorry, it was Katie Kaufman, Kevin. And that will take about a dozen bikes, and that will be a part of the parking lot. It will be put just to the left of the door. It will be bolted into cement there. It's been sitting in my backyard under a tarp over the winter. We've also had upgraded electrical, including all the lighting has gone to LED, and it's a lot better in there. And I think everybody's going to enjoy that. That's phase one. Some of the work we were looking to was delayed for that. Yeah, the city has a little bit of overhead chat I've had with Kathy about that in terms of trying to realize those things. So going forward, the next phase which was postponed a bit, is upgrading the second floor washrooms. We're already in the process of putting in automatic on-off lighting. So you walk in, they turn on, you walk out, they turn off. Baby changing tables, one will be to put in the first floor, main floor washroom, and one will be put up in the men's washroom on the second floor, only because there wasn't enough room in the women's washroom. We'll also be upgrading the staircase. And you'll see here the sort of things we're doing. So, all the flooring, paint, new drapes for light control, particularly on the second floor windows, which on a bright sunny afternoon and in the winter or summer, it's absolutely glaringly bright. New furniture in the lounge, boardroom tables and chairs, folding table and chair storage as opposed to it lying all over the place. A kitchen refresh, and a first floor cleanup, coffee and snack area, which will probably be sometime in 2025, 26. So that's pretty. We'll also be putting in additional big screens, so people, come in and do presentations. They don't need to lug in a screen or an LCD projector. They're quite popular because then people can have virtual. They can do shall we say, a hybrid Zoom meeting with people who can be there in person and other people who can watch and have cameras, and so we'll be doing it and making it very audio visual friendly because a lot of people have been requesting that. Now over to Rob McCauley on the green stuff.
All right, I'll start with the Neighborhoods project. Here are a couple of pictures that illustrate what we've been up to since 2017, with a couple of seasons lost due to COVID, limiting how much interaction we could have going door to door. Next slide, please. So Neighborhoods is one of the Kbca's ongoing projects, and it's a real community building initiative because we've got volunteers going to visit their neighbors and help learn more about trees and the importance of forest renewal and the importance of fostering stewardship of the urban forest. And volunteers learn how to identify and assess trees, and that knowledge gets spread throughout the neighborhood. I'll show you a map here in a couple of minutes of what we've accomplished so far. So we are involved in other programs with the city and with other organizations, some of which have been mentioned here earlier. Pathway renewal. We have a network of paths within Beaverbrook. So last year, Varley and Craig Park highways, basically, the wide paths were renewed completely. And I think we'll see more perhaps happening this year, but I haven't heard the details yet. But those pathways are definitely the way that people get from place to place, for kids to school, and the various parts of the community get linked together. I'll talk in a minute about this climate resiliency initiative. And it's an example of partnering with other environmental groups and the city on on looking forward the impact of climate change. Next slide, please. I'll talk a bit about what happened last year. We restarted the door-to-door tree inventory and did Penfield and Selwyn, that area, door-to-door, starting with the delivery of a training course the first weekend in June, a two-day training exercise where it's hands-on, people learning what to look for, how to identify species and structural and other deficiencies that trees might have that we need to look at. We also partner annually with Carleton University environmental science faculty students. This is us as a community partner for third-year students in the environmental science educational faculty. And we looked at stormwater, looking at things like permeable surfaces rather than asphalt. This is becoming a bigger issue as we look at more high density neighborhoods with almost virtually no green space. Everything's hard surfaces, so the water that falls as rain has to be dealt with through the stormwater system instead of re-entering the water table. So there's more work to be done in that whole area. We also looked at the spongy moth spread last year. It turned out that we just monitored because that whole threat seems to have been alleviated last season. The season before they were pretty active, but nothing really to speak of last year. So that gave us more time to look at some of the invasive plant species in the parks. We started with dog strangling vine, which is fairly prolific in a number of the parks around Sandwell Green, especially Alice Wilson Woods. So a small team of keen people got out and started extracting these vines as they started to grow up the trees and do damage. So that was the highlights of last year. Next slide, please. So the tree inventory course is planned again for the first week in June. There'll be some information go out on that in the next few weeks to solicit interested volunteers to join. We normally have 15 to 20 people who sign up and then follow up with some door-to-door info collection. We usually do a 2 or 3 hour session at a time, a morning or afternoon, teams of 2 or 3 people going around, pick one street and then put the sign up that we saw earlier, identifying that we've got the inventory in process. And it quickly turns into, I won't say a street party, but definitely a street educational initiative where you get people coming out to say, oh, what are you doing? And can I help? And when are you going to come do my trees? Trees are pretty much a good news story. So anything that helps understand and support their continuation is a happy story. So that's going to continue. I think we're looking at perhaps Lismore this year as the street of choice. And we also want to do more work on the invasive plants. There are dozens of different plants that could be targeted, but the dog strangling vine still needs more work. And in that one, we could use some help from the city on the disposal piece. We extracted, Neil, I think we had like 50 bags at one point, big industrial garbage bags that we had to kind of hang on to until the seeds were basically cooked in the sun, these dark, the black bags. I think the city could do a better job of processing that quantity of material, turning it into something useful. Okay, the Climate Resiliency Workshop. This is with the Community Associations for Environmental Sustainability. We're partnering with them. And the way that is going to work, it's going to be on May 13th, Saturday morning for a couple of hours. It's open to residents of Beaverbrook, but other community associations as well. So if you're interested in learning more about how climate change will affect Ottawa and in discussing community preparedness for climate impacts with other residents, you might want to think about joining the people on this call, Canada Lakes, Briarbrook, Brookside, and Morgan's Grant community associations for a community dialogue on the resiliency. So it's going to be held at the community center, the Beaverbrook Community Center, from 9 till 11 on Saturday, May 13th. And we've got the material getting ready to go out, some posters to advertise and spread the word on that. What else have I got here? Yeah, we have another Carleton University partnership going on in the fall semester when school kicks off in September. Low maintenance lawn alternatives is another topic that came up. People are considering replacing their lawns with something that's more supportive of pollinators or more natural. And AstroTurf is not the right answer. That has been picked up as what some people seem to want to do, but not a good way to go. What else? We would like to, for this workshop I talked about, the resiliency, have some high school representation. High school students, I think, would be another set of inputs into that kind of workshop where you look at what are we worried about and how we're going to deal with these various the extreme weather events, the increasing heat, the flooding, the windstorms. So if anybody, or you know anybody that might be a contact through to the Earl of March to link up with some of their environmentally oriented programs, that would be great if we could get some kids to come out. And I think it was mentioned earlier, the Clean Up the Capitol is later this month. Next slide, Neil.
Just before you move on, Kathy had a couple of comments.
Oh, sorry, Kath.
Thanks. No, Rob, first I was just going to say thanks so much for all that you do. I love listening to your report every time because it's all the stuff that people care so much about. I was just going to say a couple things on the huge tree loss we've had and where you've seen where people have had to take down their entire trees. I'm sure city's got lots of tree planting to do. They want to know if you want to plant trees, let them know. Trees and Trust program. If you have a tree on your right of way, you know, we've got a bunch of trees to plant. So just let us know. So you can tell people that too. Our goal is to keep planting as many possible trees. The numbers that we lost in the Direcco are staggering and more now, right?
Yeah.
The other thing I was going to say is your point about the stormwater all going into our stormwater sewers. One of the challenges we have, and I put this in another newsletter, is that people are putting a lot of interlock all throughout their driveways and through parts of their lawn for various reasons. Some of them because they need wheelchair access, but some because people would rather not mow. And just as a warning to people, you have to have a certain amount of, to Rob's point, you have to have a certain amount of what we call softscape or lawn so that all the water doesn't have to end up in our stormwater sewers, right? We want it to be absorbed. Like the golf course is a stormwater management system, so is your lawn. So if you are thinking of doing any renovations to your driveway, please call bylaw ahead of time. Please make sure you don't do something that has to then be ripped out and or, you know, causes some other problem with drainage in the area. That emergency preparedness, there's a ton on our city website now, and there have been sessions that people can attend. So if you're looking for more information on how to be more prepared for some of these big storms, I was just going to mention that. And Rob, to the volunteers part of it, if you want to send me anything in the newsletter I'll put out, we often have kids come to the counselor's office saying they want to know if they can get volunteer hours. So you want to send us anything, we can probably connect you to some of the kids that have reached out to us. So I just wanted to add to that.
That's great. It's also very good to hear that the Trees and Trust program is not as oversubscribed as I thought it was, so that there will be more trees available. So that's good.
Yes, many.
one more thing, I'd like to mention Diane Tessier plays a key role in all these various green projects, along with we have a core group of dedicated green people, crazy tree people that have been with us for years, and we'd like to build on that, the numbers of folks doing the tree inventory, because it's the next slide is a map of where we've been, but we haven't quite done half of Beaverbrook, and it's been years. And as you point out, Kathy, the trees are going as quickly as we're able to count them. So Neil, can you flip to the last slide? I think there should be one more. There you go. So these dots represent trees that have been inventoried. Hopefully you can recognize Beaverbrook, but it's filling in gradually. It's a fun project. It really is enjoyable to, in a relaxed way, do something where you're learning and contributing and getting to see your neighbors and what wonderful gardens they have and how did they do that. Wish I could. So lots of fun. Thanks for the time.
I've muted myself. I'm my own worst enemy. One thing that Kevin McCarthy brought up is one thing that we need to get is authorization from the community for the renovation expenditure projections we're going to make in the next 2 or 3 years. And one of the things we neglected to do at the time when we originally asked for this 3 or 4 years ago was for an inflation rider so we could adjust in kind of, you know, so that the dollars match it. And certainly renovations are going up at a tremendous pace. So as I said, we're looking at probably another 150. We've got $50,000 essentially in the pipe now that has been approved and is funded by the city at 50%. So that has been a great help, and we will continue to use that program. But we're looking to ask for approval for another $100,000 contingent on, and I'll put that in the chat. Just going to drop it in here to everybody so that you can see it in the chat. Is, to commit to allow the directors to approve funding. This is, of course, contingent on the fact that we actually have the money, but it's to commit funds from the Community Association bank account and to move forward with those plans, because otherwise, with the assumption that we are going to seek and probably get, because we've certainly gone through the first hurdle and we're a known quantity to the grant application people at the city. So certainly they have been discussions with all our future plans. And so that certainly is something that we're confident in at this point we can do so. So I'd like to ask for someone to motion this, as I say, doing like the city, doing a walk-on motion. Some great leadership there by the city. Is a walk-on motion for $100,000 in renovations to authorize that for the Kbca. So can I get someone to motion that, please? Marianne Wilkinson, can I get a seconder? If you want to use your raise hand function on, okay, Katie Kaufman is seconding that. Any questions or dissenting opinions on that? No, motion carried. Thank you very much. That makes our life a lot easier to carry forward. Looking at the proposed slate of officers, we're getting to the final items of the evening. One is to nominations for board of directors going forward. Of course, anybody wants to jump in and volunteer. We have a number of vacant positions, including desperately looking for a treasurer. We don't need a bookkeeper. We need someone who's a financial person who will guide us in terms of financial matters. So we're looking to confirm the current directors, including myself as president for now. So that is the proposed slate. And unless there is others to volunteer or those who disagree with the slate of officers, then that will be taken as read. So can I get a motion to accept the proposed slate of board KBCA directors and officers, please? Katie. Katie's going to motion. Can I get a seconder, please? Diane Tessier seconded. All right, thank you, Diane. Cluster 1, 2, and 3. Formerly it used to mean there's if you know anything about design of Beaverbrook, is that it was designed with various clusters of streets that went together, and there's about four major areas, so that basically it's split into 4 areas. Nominally, it's always supposed to be somebody who's from that particular cluster of streets, so that we get sort of area representation. In reality, it's sort of a traditional loose thing, so it's basically anybody who wants to volunteer from the community. So it's certainly something that anybody feels they're interested and want to be involved in the direction of the community association. You're certainly happy to fill in one of those vacant spots. All right, with no further input, we'll make that carried. As I said, election of officers, we've covered that off. So at this point, unless there's additional questions, as I said, we'll be pushing forward with volunteer stuff. We'll be certainly using the newsletters to get information out to people, and looking to hold both a combination of in-person and Zoom events. Certainly one thing I'll be working with Rob is to look if we can get some additional lectures on things like the right tree to plant, the right green activity you can do in your yard with sustainable grasses, etc., as opposed to lawns, pollinators. There's a whole series of potential topics we can do in terms of green activities. And we're certainly looking for input as to what you would like to hear from us, because of course, we've got the community center where we can do things live, and we can do things online. So unless there are any further questions or comments, I motion we adjourn. Thank you very much for attending. It's good to see you all. And we will be pointing this out and the recording